In economics, the good old days are those when everything was cheaper. From time to time, someone shares an old wimpy menu on social media or talks about the time when 50 Rand meant dinner and a movie. These are fun facts, but they don't always mean that the good old days were better. The economics behind the nostalgia comes down to inflation. It's about the rate of increase in the general price level. People keep an eye on the monthly CPI inflation rate, but they sort of forget that those numbers add up. Business Tech recently published an article looking at what 100 Rand would buy in 1980 versus today. The short answer is a lot in 1980 and very little today. Over this 44-year period, the average price level increased by almost 4,000%. In other words, what 100 Rand could buy in 1980, you would need 3,940 Rands for today. It's fun to look at those old prices. A litre of milk for 1.70 Rand, lamb chops for 7 Rands a kilo and 2 kgs of white rice for R1.20. But they don't always tell us as much as we think. As consumers, we want to maximize the utility we get from consuming goods and services, so more is better. But we also like variety and quality, and you can't really compare a 1980s coffee to a regular flat white today. You simply could not buy sushi in Potchefstroom those days. The old-time prices seem low, but our modern consumption basket looks a lot different. The other thing to keep in mind is the hallmark of a conversation with anyone about the good old days. Everything was cheap, but no one was paid much. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of research that bring these two perspectives together. But there's one interesting article worth a mention. The authors compare the incomes of an assistant director and a director general in the public service over the period 1984 to 2008. In 1984, the assistant director earned 51,000 Rands a year and the director general 102,000 Rands. By 2008, that gap had grown significantly. The assistant director earned 250,000 Rands a year and the director just more than R1,000,000 Rands per year. Based on the inflation rate, the poor assistant director simply did not get the necessary cost of living adjustments and was making 220,000 Rands a year less than he should. The DG was receiving 120,000 more than was needed to compensate for inflation. The paper also looked at what the money can buy. For the assistant director, a 1300 VW Golf was relatively more expensive, and the DG was definitely not driving one anymore. So when someone talks about how everything used to be cheaper, we can all agree, but also ask them about their income then and now, and remind them of the safety features on modern cars, the wonder of the internet, and the variety at Woolies. Thank you for tuning into this week's edition of the Economics Weekly with me, Waldo Krugell. Drop a comment or a question below and join me again for next week's episode as we look at news that makes our economy tick.